Why don't we start with the latest U.S. men's national team roster, Herc, which was dropped on Sunday ahead of friendlies Saturday in Kansas City against Canada, facing off against Jesse Marsch, and then next Tuesday against New Zealand in Cincinnati. Let's start with a quick rundown of who is not here. Weston McKennie, Anthony Robinson, and Tanner Tesman all falling into the rest category, so maybe fit, but not called in to either rest or settle in with their team, whatever. On the injured category, we got Tyler Adams, Serginho Dest, Tim Weah, Gianluca Busio, Kevin Paredes, and Cameron Carter-Vickers. So that's who's not here. Who is here? 18 of the 24 guys called in by Mikey Veras, by the way, the interim manager, who of course is an assistant under Greg Berhalter. 18 of these 24 guys were on the Copa America team. You got Christian Pulisic, you got Gio Reyna, you got 4 forwards, Herc, Balogun, Pepe, Sargent, and Haji Wright. You got a couple starting defenders in Chris Richards and Tim Ream, and you got the starting goalie in Matt Turner. The goalie everybody's talking about, we're going to talk about him in a little bit, is Diego Cochen, the 18-year-old, I believe, triple national who's come up in the Barcelona Academy. But like I said, we'll talk about him in a bit. Herc, just give me your first thoughts here on this 24-player roster called in by Mikey Veras, and definitely not Mauricio Pochettino, who, according to our Jeff Carlisle, will be announced any day now. You can read more about that over at ESPN.com.
Were you being sarcastic and definitely not Mauricio Pochettino?
Yes, that was a thick
Is
layer.
that sarcasm?
Well, let me say this. I hope if he's the guy, and it looks like it's done, or as close to done as it can possibly be without being announced, I hope that they're leaning on him. I hope he's making every selection around this roster. I hope he's making the lineups for Mikey Veras. I hope he's diagramming the subs for Mikey Veras. I want him to have all the influence. Otherwise, Herc, my opinion would be it's a wasted window. The September window, everybody in the club world hates it. So you don't have your full team. If he's not making the shot, making the decisions here, it's a waste if it's just Mikey Veras running these guys out for, fulfilling television contracts and stuff like that. I hope this is Mauricio Pochettino's team.
Yeah. So I don't want to dump cold water on your hopes here, but it is probably the other way around. Pochettino leaning on Mikey Veras, leaning on whoever in the federation may have some knowledge of these players, where they're at in their careers, where they're at in their respective moments for their clubs, and weighing or leaning on these decisions to leave these players, to bring these players in, to say, and let's talk about a player like the goalkeeper, the fourth goalkeeper right now for Barca. We'll talk about him in a second, but maybe some of these decisions he doesn't know about. Maybe he doesn't know about the inner workings of these players and their situations at the club, so he should lean on some of these guys like Mikey Veras. Wasted window? So many reasons why this is a wasted window, and it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because if it's at the expense of not having a Pochettino, then what are you doing? But if you have a Pochettino lined up and it's just a matter of days, then just trot out this 24-man roster to fulfill the TV contracts, the obligations of already scheduling these games in these said, markets and getting them over with. Do it if that's what you need to do. If in that process you can fulfill other obligations or maybe even check off some other boxes, great. But what do we really expect here? You already mentioned people, teams, club teams, managers hate the September window. What are you going to get out of playing against New Zealand? What's that going to realistically tell you? So, wasted window, sure. It's one of these situations where this doesn't matter, but it matters. And why does it matter? What's the off chance that Pochettino actually has a say here? Then it matters. But if it doesn't, do I really care what Mikey Veras is going to trot out there? No, I really don't. With all due respect to Mikey Veras, I couldn't care less. With some of these players that probably do more harm than good in their respective club situations. So I'm all for just getting the window over with.
You're not interested in at least seeing, and I know we're going to talk about Diego Cochen in just a second, but some of these guys, especially in positions where the U.S. needs depth, right? I'm thinking along the back line. We just saw Austin Trusty make a move from the Championship over to Celtic in Scotland. Left-sided center back. You obviously need a pair for Chris Richards. Who else? They got Caleb Wiley.
Fossey.
They got Caleb Wiley, who's starting
I'm
now,
interested in
getting
the
some
Marlon
minutes for
Fossey.
Strasbourg.
I'll tell you what. I'm interested in like these late bloomers who have been written off by many. LA kid. He was born in LA, lived in the UK for a while. Was a Fulham, academy product. Goes off into the lower league, lower tiers in the English pyramid. Doesn't play. A lot of that is injury-based. Maybe had a run of bad luck when he was at Bolton or wherever else he was at. All of a sudden finds his form in Belgium, in Standard Liège, in a very good situation, a very good team, and is now getting playing time, but he's 25 years of age, and he's called up. What that tells me is they realize Serginho Dest is a long-term injury, and Joe Scally, while he may have service them in a very admirable way, he is still human and can get injured. And the drop-off from the Scally to the next is a massive drop-off. We're talking about going back to a Shaq Moore that didn't necessarily, shower himself in glory. So I'm interested in something like that. I'm interested in seeing if he could be a serviceable player or maybe one of these, diamonds in the rough. Other than that, you mentioned 18 of these players are the Copa America roster. 13 of them are U23 players that we've seen before. There aren't really too many surprises, and we'll get into it, but it's a situation right now where you're just fulfilling these contractual obligations.
The one other thing I'm curious to see is how Haji Wright gets lined up. Do we still think of him as a winger, or is he now graduated into the 9 conversation? Because that seemed to be a Greg Berhalter.
Do you want me to answer that for you?
That seemed to be a Greg Berhalter.
Do you want me to answer that for you?
Yeah, go ahead.
There is no way Mikey Varas strays from what Greg Berhalter did. There is no way he deviates from that plan. There is no
Boo this
way.
Man. Boo.
This is what it is, okay?
I'm not booing
Because
you.
there is a tree here for Greg Berhalter, and every single one, they may have had different results, but every single one has gone about it pretty much the way Greg Berhalter would have gone about it. And they've spoken the way Greg Berhalter would have spoken, and they've instilled the same principles as the previous regime. So I don't see a situation where Mikey Varas plays the wise guy here and says, well, maybe I can do myself a solid and do things differently. I think he's just company man and he goes about his way.